time. I look down, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to get over there. You know, and recapping last week, it's hard to lose. It's always hard to lose. It's even harder to lose when physically you feel like you really control the football game. When you go back and look at it statistically, when you average 6.5 yards a play, when you throw for 8.5 yards, you rush for over 4 yards a carry. Some of the things that we did, I mean, it's really hard to look at game film and understand how you lost a game. But as we talked with the team last night, you have a plan. You have a plan in what it takes to win, and we certainly didn't follow that plan, with turnovers being first and foremost and the number one thing. You have 14 possessions in a football game. We had 7 of them were change of possessions. We had 5 turnovers. We had 2 change of possessions in special teams, one of them being the roughing the punter and one of them being the onside kick. And so all of a sudden you're down to 7. You punt twice, you score 5 times, and there's your football game. And so it's really hard. I don't feel like we really gave ourselves a chance to win this football game on offense, which was frustrating. And I give Northwestern an awful lot of credit and Coach Thomas, and I thought his team played really hard. I thought they did what they had to do, and they were able to put up 30 points. You go back and look at it, and they scored 23 points off turnovers, especially in the fourth quarter when all 3 of them came down at our end of the field, where they didn't even need to make a yard of offense to be able to kick a field goal. And those are hard pills to swallow, because you feel like you lost a game that you should have won. But unfortunately, we didn't play well enough to win. We don't hide from that. We can't put our head in the sand and go hide from it. That was the body of work we put out there. And I had said, you know, I even told the team last night, I know they kind of laugh and make fun a little bit because I continually say we're a work in progress. We're a work in progress. Whether we win or whether we lose, we've got a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces out there, and we've got to get better. And some of the mistakes that we made early in the season, in the first 3 games of the season, came back to bite us in the tail. And what we weren't able to do in this game that we were able to do in some of the other games is take advantage of some of the deep ball opportunities that we had. And we weren't able to take advantage of that to put some points on the board. And then we weren't able to control the football with the turnovers. The 9 penalties hurt. Especially when you call back 14 points. I mean, when you have 2 touchdowns called back, or a touchdown and then a ball down to the 1-yard line, when you have those type of things that call back touchdowns, it makes it hard. So those are the 3 things, obviously, that are the elephants in the room that we have to clean up, is being able to protect the ball, take advantage of some of our opportunities, and then eliminate some of the penalties. I keep saying the game is about us. And we've got to take care of our own house before we can worry about our opponent or what we're trying to do to win, because we've got some things that we've got to get better at for sure. I'm not making excuses for it. The performance of this football team is my responsibility as the head coach. It's our responsibility as coaches to get our players to go out and get them to understand what it takes to be productive, to give ourselves a chance to win, and we did not do that. We did not do that on Saturday. I felt like offensively, some guys, I mean, there were some great individual efforts in this game. I don't know if I've ever seen a player play harder than Kenneth Dixon played in this football game, from running routes to carrying the ball to blocking. We asked him to stay in and block with a lot of the different things they were doing pressure-wise. I thought he competed his tail off the entire football game. I thought Sterling Griffin and Hunter Lee played really well on the outside. Marlon Seats played a big role as a fullback, and I thought played really well for us, and he's getting better and better every week. And I thought there were a host of guys up front that played really well. I thought Cody had probably the worst game that he's had during the course of the season. And it's not that he threw the ball bad or anything like that. He just, as far as some basic reads, he went away from it. I don't know if we started pressing a little bit in a game that we felt like we should have won or should be doing better, and some of the frustration with turnovers and trying to do too much, but he did not play his typical game that he has up until this point. On the defense, I thought it was our best game up front. I thought we played a really good game up front. Guys like Vernon Butler and Taylor and Brown, I thought played really well. I liked the way that our linebackers played. I thought Tony Johnson and Bo Feet and Mitch Villamez, I thought that some of those guys played really well at linebacker. And we came in here and said, you know what, they have a really good passing attack. I give them a lot of credit with what they're doing and their quarterback and the way that he's playing. And we said, you know what, we're not going to give up the big play. We're going to make him earn it. And we didn't give up a big play for a touchdown, some of what we were trying to do, and keep the ball in front of us and make him snap it again. And I thought our safeties, Bryce and Woods, continually play really well. And I thought Levander Liggins played a really good football game. But it's just unfortunate that the way the game turned out with some of the mistakes we made. And as Coach Hester said, he said, you know, I've never been around a game where we dominate physically, but at the same time we beat ourselves up at the same time. And it's probably pretty appropriate to what we did in this football game. I'm not trying to say that with any disrespect towards Northwestern, because as I said, I thought they played a really good football game. They did what they had to do to win the game, but really frustrated at the way that we performed. I thought in the kicking game we had our best game with our kickers. The way they kicked the ball, we made all our extra points, all of our field goals. We averaged 47 yards a punt, which is the best we've done. We only had 2 punts. We punted each punter 1 time, and they did and both of them did a really nice job with that. I thought our kickoffs were deep. They placed them well, but the frustrating part in the special teams was we saw 2 things we thought we could take advantage of. Felt like we had an opportunity to block a punt. We got there, we didn't execute what we needed to do to get it done. We ended up roughing the punter, and then the same thing, we felt like we saw some things we could take advantage of, but we didn't execute it. And again, that falls back on us as coaches, and we've got to do a better job with that. But that was the frustrating part, was the 2 change of possessions, and then obviously the drop punt to start the 4th quarter, which put him down in scoring range to start. You know, you don't have long to wallow in self-pity, as we always talk about as a program. You have 24 hours to enjoy a win, 24 hours to mourn a loss, and that one's over, and we've got to get ready for Auburn. I think we are playing an unbelievable football team, and I say that in watching film. I know Coach Malzahn and the type of job that he does, and followed his career from when he was at Arkansas and when he was at Tulsa and I was at East Carolina. The success that he's had, the things that he's done, a lot of the guys on his staff, from Ellis Johnson to Rodney Gardner to J.B. Grimes to Tim Horton, who was the running back coach. Tim and I grew up together with our fathers coaching at Arkansas. So I have great respect for this staff. I know the quality of staff that they have, and I think they're doing an unbelievable job. We went back and we've watched a lot of them from 2013, and I don't think it's close how much better they are this year than what they were a year ago. And it's scary to think a year ago they competed for the national championship, and yet I think this football team is a lot better than they were a year ago. You sit down and watch what people were doing to them a year ago, and right now it all starts up front with those defensive linemen. They're defensive linemen. The best way for me to put it, they're violent. They're all 300, 305, 10 pounds, but it's not so much the weight as much it is the athleticism, the size, the strength, and what they do as a defensive front. They're penetrators. They try and push you into the backfield, and they do a great job. And it's not hard to see why so many people have them in the championship game or in the top 4 because of how good they are defensively with their front 4. Their linebackers are athletic. Their secondary plays a lot of man, but I think as much as they play man, you don't have long to throw it. And that's the one thing that's been constant in every game that they've played this year. There aren't many people that are just sitting in the pocket and throwing pocket protection trying to throw the ball. And then they play man, and they got great athletes. They do a great job with their defense. They play hard. They play physical. They play violent, I think is the best way to put it. I don't know that I've ever seen a defense play this physical from what I've watched with these first 3 games that I've played. Really been impressed with what they do defensively, but that's just half of it, because when you go to the offensive side of the ball, you're looking at the Gus Malzahn offense and kind of what they do, which is very non-traditional with what they do. A lot of run-pass threats. They got a quarterback that is really running their run reads with their spit-outs really well, and that he's always a threat to run or throw. Their running backs are very big and physical. They run very hard. I think they've got their first-team tailback and their second-team tailback are both on the All-SEC team. I think one's the first team and one's the second team, which goes to show you a little bit of the versatility they have in the back end and some of the depth that they have there. Their offensive line is the same thing. They're big. They're very aggressive. They do a great job with the scheme that they run. And then their wide receivers, I mean, they have a wide receiver that was a #1 junior college receiver in the country coming in He's third team All SEC, and he's never played a down of college football, which goes to show you the respect that everybody has for him. When you look at this offense, it's about big plays. That's what they do. They can go gain of 4, gain of 5, but that gain of 70, 80, or 90 is coming with what they do and the speed they have. And you've got to try and stop their running game, but yet they're very good with their big plays and the things they try and do from a schematic standpoint. I think it's an incredible football team. I think the reason that they're ranked in the top 5 is because of their talent, the effort that they play with, and the scheme that they run. I think it's a combination of all of it. Both their returners are extremely explosive, both kickoff return and punt return. They're very fast. We're going to have to be really good in our special teams. And they've got a kicker who is a freshman, was a freshman last year, he's a sophomore. He kicks off for him, he punts for him, and he does all their field goal kicking duties. So a very talented football team. You look, they have not had a close football game yet. There's a reason why, because of their talent and what they do, and it poses a great challenge for us to go on the road. But I think the challenge for us right now is to get our own house in order. The challenge we have is to go play a football game and not turn it over, and some of the things that were very uncharacteristic of us Saturday from what we've done through the first 3 games, where we can do a better job of protecting our football, doing our job, and cleaning some things up with some of the fundamentals that we have to do as a football team.
You said y'all practiced last night. How did the team respond to what y'all were trying to tell them and do with them?
Well, I felt like, they went out there and they did a nice job at practice. Everybody's hurting. The frustration here is not that you lost. We lost at Oklahoma. It's not our first loss. We lost at Oklahoma. The frustration is you dropped a game you should have won. You dropped a game that if you go out there and you, as we always say, if you make the routine play, pick the ball up and throw it to first. Make the routine play, you're sitting here 3-1. And I think that's what's frustrating us as coaches. That's what's frustrating our players, our team. There's some guys that played some great individual efforts, and that's the hurt. But, the only thing that makes that go away is time. We just have to make sure that we take that frustration and some of that hurt and we turn it into determination and competitiveness and say, you know what, we don't want to feel that way again. If we want to be a good football team, we have a lot of football left to play. And as I told them, if we can learn some lessons from this game, the only bright spot that I could even find, and I'm one of those guys that tries to find the silver lining in the clouds of doubt, the only bright spot you can find off last week is it was not a conference game. That's about the only bright spot that I could come up with when you sit down and really try and look at it. And so what we've got to do is we've got to learn from that. We've got a lot of football game to play, a lot of football season left to play. We certainly aren't going to stick our heads in the sand, throw up our hands and say, oh my gosh, we lost. We did lose. And that's the work that we put out there. And we can't run from it. We can't hide from it. We just got to improve on it. I'm not proud of it, but I look at that and say, you know what, that's what's going to drive us to get better and make sure we can make the progress we need to make this week against a really good Auburn team and going forward against UTEP at home the week after that. And I think that's what we have to take from this, and that's how we have to build on it.
Kind of a two-part question, but this Saturday reminded me a lot of Kansas last year in terms of a lot of blown opportunities. And
Agreed.
You
Agreed.
probably should have won.
Agreed.
Your thoughts on that, one, and then two, how do you bounce back? Because last year you went to Dallas and kind of just didn't look that great against Army.
Agreed.
So how do you maybe go against that to play better Saturday?
Well, I agree the 2 games are very similar. I think we probably were a little bit more in control of this game with the line of scrimmages than we were Kansas, but without a doubt, a game that was 10-10 and we had the ball in the red zone 2 or 3 times at the end and couldn't put it in the end zone with the turnovers that we had, but very similar type of football game. And, this is part of the learning curve. It's not easy to shake a loss like this, but that's why we talk about the 24-hour rule, and we've got to mourn it. We've got to get behind it. And I said, you know what? We lost this game once. Let's make sure we don't lose again because of this game. This game's over. It's in the history books. There's nothing we can do about it. What we have to do is we have to put our eyes forward and look at where we're going rather than where we've been. And we've just got to focus on what we got to do to get ready for Auburn. I think it's going to be a heck of a challenge at Auburn. And what I'm looking at is what I want to see as a football team is us I want to see us doing our jobs. I want to see us making that routine play. And it's going to be harder with the physical nature of this defensive football team, but I just want to see us go out and compete. I don't worry about this team competing. A couple people have asked, did we have a letdown? Did we overlook at them? oh my God, you turn on the film, the effort, the effort, the competitiveness, how hard they played, I can't question that at all. And I would give that an A, with the way that they went out and they competed in this football game and the way they wanted to win. Playing hard doesn't always mean that you play smart. And that's where we got to do a better job as a coaching staff, and we've got to take this and talk about putting this one behind us and not letting it beat us twice as we move forward.
Coach, you obviously talked about that Auburn defense and how healthy they are and physical, but that offense will give your defense a different look you don't see very, very often, if at all. Completely.
And they do a great job. It's not, they could line up and run inside zone and go up and down the field with their talent. When you look at their running backs and their offensive line and the speed at receiver, they could run up and say, we're going to run it right here, we're going to run inside zone, and we're going to throw it deep, and they'd still be really good. Well, you take that type of talent, now you put it in the schemes and what they run, where they'll leave the 3 technique unblocked, and and they're zone reading to him, and they're reading off the the run and the pass and spitting it out. They really make you defend the entire field from sideline to sideline and from the line of scrimmage to the goal line, whether they're on their own one, because of the speed that they have that you have to respect. That it's not a big deal for them to come off the run fake and then take it and throw the ball 40 yards downfield, because they have the creatures up front that can protect and do the things they need to do, and they're really good at it. So it's a completely different look. It's going to be a huge challenge. Our defense at this point, I talked about, we played one of our better games up front as far as, I talked about Oklahoma, the lack of discipline and not doing our job defensively. And they're really buying in at this point. You can see them getting better and better, where they're really holding their gap and trying to become more penetrators and doing things. But this is a game that as soon as you get out of that, as soon as you get out of your gap, they can make you pay, because they're so explosive and can make some big things happen. And we've done a great job of not giving up the big play as a defensive football team, and some of Coach Diaz's philosophies and some of the things that he's doing that I think are really good. And it will be challenged this week more than we've been challenged all year with some of those philosophies.
I know you coaches like to do what you do and just make it better every week, but you have to look at that K-State tape a little bit and see where they've exposed some things to them.
Yeah, when you look at it, and I hope they drop the number of balls against us they did at K-State. I hope they, because they had about 3 or 4 big play opportunities. I'm talking about 50, 60-yard touchdowns that they dropped. I certainly hope that they drop some of those. And you have to look at it. Kansas State did a nice job schematically. They run their quarterback a lot more than we do. They have a little different dynamic to their offensive setup than we do. But you certainly can look at it and see some of the things and get some ideas. But I also look at, right now going into this game, my biggest concern is probably where we are the least equipped to go into this game would be up front on our offensive line, and where they are best equipped to, as a defense, is on their defensive front. And I think that's my biggest concern going into it, is it's not going to be so much about just scheme as much as it is giving our players to do something that they can physically do.
How do you reproduce this offense on a scout team?
You can't, not at the speed and athleticism it's going to come, because if you could, they'd be starting for you. You try and do as much as you can, good against good. You've got to spend some time apart with your scout teams where you're working the schemes, but then you got to go offense versus defense for at least, we try and do that for about 20 minutes a day, so we can get good speed on speed, where they can see deep balls and speed coming at them, running down the field. But schematically, you're going to have to spend your time apart doing that. And our players are going to have to do a great job on the defensive side of the ball coming in this week to watch a lot of film to some of the things that they do. Because, as I say all the time, knowledge is power. And the more we can learn what we're doing, the better chance we're going to have on Saturday.
You talked about their offense last year to this year. One thing that stands out to me is their passing game.
Yes.
Nick Marshall develops a lot more. You can touch on that, and the fact that they have a bona fide #1 receiver for probably the first time in a while in DeQuil Williams.
Well, and I think it's the combination of both. I think when you look at what they did last year, I don't know that they felt they had the speed to just throw it up over the top. And so a lot of what they were doing with their run option, I call it run pass option football, were ball control spit outs. You know what I mean? And they were really good with it, and they controlled the ball. Where this year what you're seeing is a lot more run deep shots. I mean, because of they've got more speed at receiver, signing the #1 junior college receiver in the country. Like I said, to come in and be an all-SEC conference player, and he's never even taken a snap, shows you what kind of talent he has. And I think they've got more speed on the outside than they've had in the past, and I think speed and athleticism, they have the ability to go make some big plays down the field, and they're taking advantage of that. And that's why you're seeing the yardage and the point difference from a year ago.
What role will discipline, we talked about that before and after Oklahoma with some of those mistakes in terms of reading gaps and whatnot,
right,
with all the zone read and stuff. Kind of similar here because they'll do a lot of that, but a unique thing, and they have a triple option, as in they'll throw it.
Exactly.
Which we saw even with Seattle and Russell Wilson. So what role does discipline in trying to tame all that?
I think it plays a huge role, but just because you're disciplined and where you're supposed to be doesn't mean you're going to make the play. I mean, because of the way that they block, the talent that they have, and the way that they execute their offense. So I think it definitely has a say in it. I definitely think it plays in it because you can't run around. I mean, I said this at the beginning, we're getting better on defense. We're getting better on defense. We're starting to penetrate more. We're starting to play our gap. We're doing a much better job of just being patient and understand how we fit into the scheme of things. But against this team, you can be disciplined and be in your gaps and everything else, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to doesn't mean that they're not going to make plays, because they are incredibly talented with what they do.
Against Northwestern State, maybe some of their zone blocking kind of took advantage of some stuff you guys were doing defensively. Do you think that's a concern with Auburn, because they're going to zone block a lot?
No, they are going to. Well, and everybody we've played, almost everybody in football today runs a lot of the zone blocking. And that's where you're going to have to be disciplined in what you do, as we talked about. But we're going to see zone the rest of the year, not because we didn't defend it early, but because when you look at, I don't know what they rushed for about 2 yards a carry last week, 2.4 or something like that. I thought we did a pretty good job. What we didn't do, it seemed like plays that we were stopping in the field, they ran the same play or the same formation in the red zone, and we weren't quite as patient as we were. I thought in the field we did a great job with it. The disappointing part defensively from Saturday that you can take from it is we were 1 out of 4 in stopping them in the red zone, and they were able to put the ball in the end zone. And that's, again, there's 3 touchdowns that if you have an opportunity to stop them there, you have a much better chance to have success. But I think we're going to see zone, and we got to keep better. I know everybody makes fun of me, but they laugh at it, but we are a work in progress right now with what we're trying to do, and we've got to keep getting better. We've got so much internally that we've got to get straight. Right now, we've said this before, we're going to get through the first 6 games, and we're going to get as good as we can, and we're going to work on the fundamentals and doing the little things the right way, then keep pressing those issues to be as good a football team as we can for the second half, and we're going to learn a lot about our team in the early part. And I think what I've seen progress, I've seen improvement, and I felt like we took a step back Saturday offensively with our penalties and with our turnovers.
Skip, on the offensive pass interference call on the second touchdown pass to Kennan, because we were confused on the radio. Did they call it on a receiver away from the play?
Yes, they did not call it on Kenneth.
Okay.
And, it's one of those, they called it as a pick. It's not taught as a pick. It's not a pick play. We're not trying to pick. I mean, they said we picked the linebacker and we threw it over the corner. And that's where they called pick. I've run that play my whole career. I've never been called for a pick on it, and it's an option for the quarterback. He got pressure from the backside, and he ended up just laying it up. His read shouldn't even have taken him there because of what the corner did, but we weren't trying to get the running back situated on the linebacker and pick him, but that's how the official saw it, and so he ended up calling it a pick play. But I think in the big play, or in the big scheme of things, it had nothing to do with the play. The corner was the one playing the deep ball, not the linebacker, but that's the way the official saw it, and that's why he called it.
Patrick pointed it out, you're the only program that's had the opportunity to play 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. How does
Lucky us, huh? Lucky us. There's another badge of honor we can put on our blazer.
How do they compare?
I think offensively, they do some similar things offensively, although it's what Auburn's doing is they've got a lot of different bells and whistles going on with it. I think both teams are incredibly talented, very big. I think it's hard to compare them defensively. They're linebackers, they're athletes, they're fast, they can run. I may have a different feel after watching Auburn live. But the difference is the schematical approach to what they do with their defensive line. Oklahoma is much more read-oriented, two-gap, put their big players on your center and your two tackles, and they take you and then throw you, and they play on the line of scrimmage. And they're really good at it, and they don't give up a lot of yards with it. Where Auburn is trying to get 4 yards deep in your backfield and then find the ball. And so they're much more disruptive in what they do. I would imagine, I hadn't seen the stats, but I would imagine more sacks, more lost yardage plays, things like that because of the penetration that they do. Now, Oklahoma can do it because they have guys like Stryker screaming off the edge that cause all that disruption in the backfield. So I'm not saying one that's better than the other. They're just different schematically in how you have to approach them. But from a talent standpoint, they're both incredibly talented teams, and I can see why both of them are where they are. I think both coaches, like I said, and Coach Stoops and Coach Malzahn, I've got great respect for, and they are both really well coached football teams. And you can see they've kind of really built something there. And I mean, Auburn's always got talent, but I mean, I think Coach Malzahn in a short period of time, the difference between that football team a year ago watching their film and this year, it's scary how much better they are this year than where they were a year ago because of some of the additions, some of the development of some of those guys up front, the speed at wide receiver that they've brought in, and some of the they graduated some players and they have replaced them with some guys that are trying to get a little bit more into Ellis Johnson's system and what they're trying to do. And scary to say because they played for it all last year, but I think watching last year and this year is all I'm going on. They're a lot better this year on defense than they were a year ago. And I think they're a lot better on offense as well because of the speed threat that they have. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to score. They're trying to score. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to create big plays on you.
A couple more.
One matchup that stands out on paper is Kenneth's 5.9 yards per carry, good number, against Auburn's run defense, 2.5 yards per carry. How do you maybe fix that, get the running game going, and if you can just express some of the challenges going up against the run defense? The
challenge is going to be blocking those front four. That's going to be the challenge. The challenge is going to be those front four. And it's not, you can say he's 6'4", 308 pounds, but he runs like our safeties. You know, you throw a screen out there and you watch him run to the sideline, and they're making tackles from sideline to sideline. They're so athletic. They're big. We keep using the word, they're violent. I mean, they don't just take on a block. I mean, and they don't just tackle you. I mean, it's like they're trying to rip your head off when they put you on the ground. The challenge is going to be, and I'm not going to say the challenge isn't for Kenneth. The challenge we're going to have is getting Kenneth to the line of scrimmage and get him going. I mean, that's the challenge for our offensive line, is to stop the penetration. But I think that's going to be, right now, that's the mismatch that we got to find a way to move the ball. I mean, because I don't think you're going to get in against this team and just run. We're going to go into it and say we do what we do, and we're just going to run the inside zone because that's what we do. Because it could be a long day if you just say we're going to run the inside zone and sit in the pocket and throw the ball all over the yard. That's a tough thing to do with that front.
With that in mind, you have to go back to maybe some passing plays you haven't used and try to maybe heighten that up a little bit, knowing that if the running game doesn't get going, you're going to have to air it out a lot. We're
going to have to find other ways to move the ball. I mean, other than just running the ball between the tackles. There aren't many people that have had a lot of success with that. I mean, Arkansas did early, and they ran a lot of traps and folds and things like that. And so Auburn left a shade in the three and went to two head-up twos. So, they've kind of answered some of the questions of some people that exploited them early. But they're a difficult team to run against. Even when you look at Kansas State, who puts an athletic quarterback in there and a lead blocker and a tight end and they even struggled running the ball against them. It's not going to be an easy chore. I don't think you can be one-dimensional. I don't think you can say we're going to get in this formation and just run this play. I think you've got to have some versatility with what you're doing as an offense to give our players a chance in this game.